The U.S. House of Representatives is headed for August recess after Speaker Mike Johnson cut House business short amid the political furor related to Jeffrey Epstein. House Democrats, meanwhile, have spent this week introducing amendments for a full House vote on whether the federal government should be forced to release documents related to the Epstein investigation. To discuss that political battle and House Republicans' priorities, we're joined now by Republican Congressman Mike Herodopoulos of Florida. Congressman, welcome to the NewsHour. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here. I'm honored.
So at this point in time, 6 months into the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, the president's passed a major budget bill. He had great NATO meetings overseas, the successful Iranian strikes. I know Jeffrey Epstein is not what he wants to be talking about, and yet many in his base, many in the party want more information and want him to make good on the pledge to release that information. Should he do that?
I think so. I think that's the progress we're making towards today. I think the quicker, the better. We, of course, want to make the innocent, their names redacted, who are not involved in this mess. But we've heard about it for years. I wish the Biden administration had done something the last 4 years when they held on to these files. But that said, I think that transparency is the ultimate disinfectant. It's the reason why I created what's called the Ledger Act, where every dollar should be online. Let's put everything out in the sunshine and let the cards fall as they may. I think that's the best way to restore trust in government.
So why do you think there's been this hesitation we've seen so far? The Attorney General basically saying, I have the files on my desk, they're coming out, and then saying we're not going to be releasing them. That's what's fueling this frustration among some in your base. What's behind that?
Well, I think that's a fair assessment. I think people are frustrated. They've waited a long time. They thought it would come out. I think we're in the last throes of it. Our Speaker, Speaker Johnson, wants the same. He wants it out transparent. I think once we get back from the August recess, which is already planned, this is not some thing that people didn't expect. But I think hopefully
it was moved up a bit, to be fair.
Yeah, but by a day. I mean, but we got our agenda through, as you know. But that said, I think in September we should expect to see all of this. Again, let's keep the innocent out of it. Let's redact some names who are not players in this, but people who have been abusing kids potentially. They need to be exposed. This is a horrific act that supposedly happened on these islands, and I think the more transparency we have in this, the better. And Kenny, let's be honest, that if there was something really bad about President Trump in this thing, I think the government would have used it, or I should say the Biden administration would have used it long ago. They tried to go literally put him in prison many times. If they had something really bad, I think they would have released it.
So you're saying by September we should be seeing the release of those files, even if they involve President Trump's name related to those files?
Look, we have to let the cards fall as they may. And my belief is, based on what we understand, if there was something really bad about the president, the Biden administration would have used it against him.
So 6 months in, as I noticed, I need to put to you where the rest of the country is looking at the president right now. The latest Gallup polling shows President Trump's disapproval rating has dipped to its lowest of the term so far. It's 37%. It's just above what you'd call his all-time worst rating of 34% at the end of his first term. And that rating, Congressman, has fallen 10 points since the beginning of this administration. What do you think is behind that?
Well, I think it's just a lack of information for this reason. You started our show today very strongly. We passed a big budget bill. We actually kept our promises to cut taxes on tips and overtime, let alone Social Security for people who worked for a lifetime. We had a major strike against our longtime enemy, that being Iran, the enemy, the thorn in our side since 1979. The stock market is at record highs. We don't have the inflation that people thought would happen with the tariffs. I mean, there's a lot of good news out there. I can't wait to get back in the district and talk about our success over the last 6 months. We made a set of promises, and we kept those promises in the big, beautiful bill. That's not a common thing in history, let alone in politics. I'm a former history professor myself. Isn't it nice and refreshing to have elected officials say, this is what we're going to do in Washington, and that's exactly what we did? When people actually see that line by line in the big bill, I think they're going to like it a lot.
A 10-point drop, though, since the beginning of this administration 10 months ago. You attribute that to people not getting the right messaging?
Well, I contribute just welcome to politics. If there was an election tomorrow, I'd be really nervous. But it's not going to be. When we go back, and a year from now, when I can say, guess what? We didn't cut Medicaid for the most vulnerable. Guess what? We did give a tax cut to the people who needed it most after 4 years of higher prices. Guess what? We actually turned the tide against Iran for the first time since 1979. This is the luxury we have, the facts on our side. It was so disappointing to see the other side saying we're going to cut Medicaid for the disabled. That's an outright lie. You can go to page 630 of the bill, and it shows specifically the most vulnerable will be untouched by these Medicaid changes. Only the people who either refuse to work or illegal aliens.
As you know, a lot of the concern around Medicaid cuts was also around people who may not be able to meet some of the paperwork requirements, and we can have that longer discussion at another time because I know those won't go into place until after the midterms, most of those cuts as well. But on the signature budget bill, you haven't really won people over yet. And I wonder if that's a messaging problem or something else, because when you look at the numbers, over half of all Americans believe that it hurts the middle class more than it helps them. So there's skepticism there, right? And there's concern not enough is being done. People are worried prices aren't coming down. Are you worried that you will lose many in your Republican base if they don't start to see changes in their lives that they voted for the economy in particular?
Look, that's a fair question, and that's what we have to answer over the next 18 months before the next election. And I think what we like to say is pretty simple. These cuts in taxes will actually be retroactive. So that you earn those tips and overtime, and let alone tips and Social Security, you're going to get that money. You're going to feel it in a positive way.
And yet they think it's going to hurt the middle class. Why is that?
And I think that's our problem, because we're not marketing it well enough. That's why we need to get back to the district and educate folks that, remember, if we did nothing, you would see, on average, a 23% tax hike if we did nothing, because you go back to the old, higher Obama tax rate. So we need to do a better job of, quote, marketing or politics, whatever you want to call it. But we believe in this. We really believe we invest in the middle class. That's when you cut taxes on tips and overtime and Social Security. People are going to save, invest, and spend, and we think the economy is going to grow.
Can I just ask you, we're 6 months into the second Trump administration. You're 6 months into your first term in Congress, and you came here to be part of this legislature. It's worth pointing out, almost every major accomplishment we've seen from Republicans so far, though, has been either pushed by executive action or has been something the president has asked for, and Republican lawmakers have then seen through, including ceding some of your own constitutional power, the power of the purse. Is this what you envisioned it would be at your time in Congress? Well,
I would say this. When we were in a lot of crisis in the Great Depression, FDR changed the dynamic. And he said, we have this agenda. The American public has changed dramatically. I mean, the Republican Party is known as the blue-collar party now for the first time in my lifetime. And we really focused the new tax cuts on the middle class. I felt like the president had a mandate. It's a new Republican Party. He was really focused on the middle class who were hurt by higher grocery prices and gas prices. And I really felt like we're going to do the kind of the old 100 days of FDR. It took 6 months. Welcome to modern America. But it's been an agenda that we believe in. And we think we are going to really show the results when we have low unemployment rates, we have low inflation rates, and we're also telling countries around the world, treat us as an equal. The reason why the tariffs, I think, are having some positive effect with the revenues coming in is because prices aren't going up, because America is the #1 market in the world, and for too long they were charging us higher tax rates than we were charging them. Treat us fairly, and we think we can compete quite fine. I guess the question is, would you be okay if Democratic lawmakers did the same with a Democratic president? Of course not. Welcome to partisanship. I'm with you. It's modern politics, because unfortunately, I want to see more of the bipartisan operations. I work with a lot of Democrats on issues like cryptocurrency. We just passed a major piece of legislation that they couldn't get done in years past. I'm a big tent guy, and the more we can work together with Democrats, America's better off. But I believe in tax relief, and I think we really provided that, and more importantly, backed up our campaign promises, which is not a common thing in Washington, D.C. Appreciate your candor, at the very least. Republican Congressman from Florida, Mike Herodopoulos, thank you for being here. My pleasure. Thank you.